What's going on, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know what it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. By the time you rocks or rock and metal thrive. Hey, everybody. I'm wishing you a happy day today because I want to make sure that I don't speak too weirdly on what day this podcast is coming out, because I know we got some special ones that either aired right before this or maybe right after this. I don't remember, but we have a great episode for you again today. And yes, thank you to Brian from MVK Music Group once again, because you guys know whenever he brings artists on and introduces me to artists, they always bring a lot to the table. And here is another one. So when it comes to hard rock stylings out of Washington, once again, Dead Rebel Saints definitely bring it. And their lead vocalist and lead songwriter, Keven, not me though, this guy's name is Keven as well. Great name, by the way. Comes to the podcast, and we talk all about how the difference in the writing style. Again, the emotional connectiveness that people have to music. We really dive deep into that. And Keven gives you a glimpse at what to expect in the next Dead Rebel Saints album so that you guys can get into it before it even comes out. So are you ready? Because this is a Keven squared action kind of podcast. So let's go. Yow! Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast, you've seen a lot of bands that have been associated with MVK Music Group or Maverick Apparel that have appeared on the podcast. And thanks to Brian from MVK Music, he got me yet another great one all the way from Tacoma, Washington. If I got that correct, I hope I did, because otherwise I'm going to look like a fool. We're talking with Keven. Well, not me, but another guy named Keven. Thank God. Great name. From the band Dead Rebel Saints. So Keven, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Thank you, man.
Did I get it right there from Tacoma, Washington? Because if I did, just make fun of me.
Yeah, we usually just say Seattle because not everybody knows where Tacoma's located. But yeah, we're it's like 20 minutes, half hour outside of Seattle, Tacoma, Washington.
The band I shot a podcast with the previous day before we shot this one, they were from Seattle as well. So it's like I kind of had a little bit of a background on the area as well. Plus, when I was younger, when I was a kid, it was like, okay, in 5th grade, we're going to have the geography bee. And I always ended up doing really well in those because I actually remember certain things about where places are and how things form.
Oh, well, you're doing better than me, man.
Woo! Well, we'll see what happens now if I ever get in one of those questions. Because, I mean, where things are, yeah, I'll probably know a good amount of that. But how things get, formed, yeah, I'm probably way off base on that. I'm more just I don't know how things get formed, but I know what this song sounds like.
There we go.
All right, so Keven, to start this one out, I always like to start out with this so that the listeners can get to know you a little bit better. So I always ask 3 questions. The first 2 are the easy parts. The last one is the more difficult one. So I want you to introduce yourself with your name, what you do in Dead Rebel Saints, and then what part of the band you are or what member of the band you are, kind of thing. And then the third is always the fun one. And that is, I'm going to go all welcome week of college. When you're in a big group, they're like, we want to know a little fun fact about yourself. However, I always like the wacky fun facts, the wackiest thing you think of, whether it's a story, fun fact, whatever it might be. I don't mind. I always love hearing them. I've heard people tell me about their famous Twitter cats, Instagram pets. I've had people give me their Tinder bios. That's always a fan favorite of mine because, I listen to stuff to them hey, I always like to hear that kind of stuff. But if people don't have it, I don't mind. I've also heard some crazy snowplow stories, just whatever else comes up. So whatever you got, go for it.
All right. My name's Keven James Hoffman. Born in Aberdeen, Washington, famous for Kurt Cobain. In Dead Rebel Saints, I'm the lead singer and lead guitar player, and I pretty much write all the music. I'm the central hub, as it were. And then a fun fact, let's see. We could go with I'm allergic to my own hair.
Wait, what?
Obviously not I can grow a beard and I can grow hair and stuff, but if I shave, I shaved my legs once, and if the hair gets below the skin surface, man, I get all inflamed. I can't shave my face. I got to use clippers and stuff. I shaved my leg once, and I was infected for 6 months. My legs were all swollen up and running a fever, and I got allergic to my own hair. Stupid.
That definitely, when it comes to a weird and wacky fact, that is definitely constitutes a top 10 wacky fact, because I don't know how anyone could be allergic to their own hair, but then again, you are, and it's just something where it's crazy to think about. But hey, now people get to know more about you. That's the key.
Yeah.
And it's like people could associate with that. And all of a sudden, it's something that's going to stick out in their minds. So it's like, okay, you're the guy that's allergic to his own hair. And then all of a sudden they're going to end up like, okay, what band was he in? We're going to check you out on Spotify. We're going to start listening to you. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're going to be sharing it with their friends. They're like, hey, check out Dead Rebel Saints. Word of mouth, stuff like that happens.
Oh yeah, allergic to my own hair. That's going to spread like wildfire.
Well, I mean, I hope so, because in a good way. And by that, I mean, not so people just think about that, so people check out Dead Rebel Saints, and then you guys really pick up a good amount of momentum following this podcast. That's what we're hoping for.
There we go.
So when you said you're basically the backbone of the band when it comes to writing the music, how did you come up with the style? Because when I was listening to what you have on Spotify right now, because that's what Brian actually sent me in terms of the links. I'm like, okay, let's check this out, and checked out the Throwing Stones album. It definitely had that real hard rock vibe to it. So I want to know, what was the inspiration behind coming up with the sound for Dead Rebel Saints?
Let's see. Really, my voice kind of dictates a lot of it. I've got that higher range, definitely influenced by, like Chris Cornell and things like that, but also, like Skid Row and Guns N' Roses and AC/DC and things like that. So the music is kind of, had to accommodate my voice. And it's not a soft crooner voice, it's not screamy heavy metal stuff. There's definitely some vocal technique, but it's definitely had to be like a harder rock sound to, you couldn't strum Matchbox 20 songs and sing along the way I sing. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of everything in there. There's some Guns N' Roses influence, there's some Soundgarden influence, but there's also like some Candlebox influence, or, some Alice in Chains influence. There's lots of, I mean, I'm from the Northwest, so there's a lot of Northwest flavor to it. But there's little Black Label Society influence. I mean, there's a little bit of everything. There's, some Aussie stuff, and, I think it floats all over the board there.
I think it does too. And when it comes to just letting your vocals kind of dictate where the instrumentals are going to go, because especially with your vocal set, it has the power to carry a lot of these songs, and letting instrumentals just naturally come and take form off of that. It does make a lot of sense, because then you're not trying to force anything in there. You're trying to make the music make itself and just kind of come together. Because if you're going to force something in there, like like you said, force your voice on like a Matchbox 20 song, that probably wouldn't go over very well. However, I'll say, listening to the titular track on Throwing Stones, which is Throwing Stones, when I was listening to your vocals, I'm not sure if anyone's ever compared your vocals to this, so I want to see if this is what you think about this. But right when the verse started, I got this weird, like, it was like hard rock, but also soulful at the same time as well. It also had a rough sense. I'm like, what does this remind me of? And this is gonna be the two like weirdest ways to put this, but your vocal set remind me of a mix of Robert Plant and M Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold. And the reason behind that was because you get this classic rock flow that Robert Plant had, and some of those quick transitions that he always used with his voice for Led Zeppelin. I really picked up on some of those. However, you also get this rougher feel behind it, and a very more powerful feel behind it, that it reminded me of more of a classic M Shadows sense from Avenged Sevenfold. And while I'm Throwing Stones, I really like the mix, because it allowed you to really create this certain vibe with your own voice that really takes more of a hard rock tone into it, and a more powerful sound that can really turn on its head at a given moment. So you had a lot of power to just quickly turn the song into whatever you felt like it was going to be. And you kept seeing my head kind of tilt to the right, because I did a deep dive into this song, and I was just reading off what I wrote, and I didn't want to mess it up.
Oh yeah, man. That's cool. I've never gotten those two comparisons before, but I definitely, I've heard the Led Zeppelin thing just because of the range. But the M Shadows thing, I mean, I totally get it, because because it's definitely got that harder to it, that kind of gusto. But the music to me is definitely hard rock. But when you push your voice that hard, I definitely get a lot of metal comparisons. But I would definitely not. Not that I have anything against metal, but I would not think that we were metal. But you throw an M Shadows comparison in there, and it kind of drags it into the metal territory for sure.
It does a little bit, but if you compare it to what Avenged Sevenfold has done recently and what they've been saying they might do on their next album, or what they are going to do on their next album, it might have more of that rock scent into it instead of the metal scent that they had back in the 2000s and early 2010s with something like Nightmare. So
Yeah.
it definitely is something where the vocal range can definitely be brought in. However, again, with having a little bit more of that rougher tone to it, it allows you to potentially use some of those tropes that metal has created as a genre in some of your hard rock music, just to create something that has a little more of a dynamic behind it if the song calls for it. It's not trying to say push it in there. I'm just saying if for some reason it feels like it's right to potentially put a little piece of instrumental that is very common in metal into your music, just to make a song stand out, if it really feels that way, your voice is definitely able to carry it. So again, I'm
Yeah,
not saying force it in there. I'm saying if it happens naturally, you definitely have the voice to help carry that forward and make it feel like it belongs.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm a classically trained singer, so I've taken voice lessons and stuff. And I've sang everything from kind of a Dream Theater style to like super Slipknot heavy metal stuff and everything in between. So the nice thing about, with this band is wherever the music kind of goes, you've got the softer edge and you've got all the way into the metal territory, and with the voice dictating everything, it it gives the music a lot of dynamics, and there's no, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, there's no weak spot vocally, or there's no weak spot musically where it's like, well, you did the soft stuff and you did the really heavy. There's a lot of bands, especially nowadays, and I'm not slighting anybody, but they do the really soft, 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 and then they go straight to rip your face off, and there's like no middle ground. They've got the really soft emo singy voice, and then they go straight into death metal, and it's like, well, where's the, how did we get there? You just rip my head off unexpectedly, and that's got its place. But when that's all you do, it's like you got two gears, and it gets really samey to me after a while. I like to be able to cover the whole spectrum.
I do know what you're saying there as well, because there are times where artists kind of, like you said, have that instance where they go super soft and all of a sudden quickly go into something that's super duper hard and heavy. They want to rip your head right off of your body. And it does. And sometimes, those really non existent transitions just to go from one to the next, it does make sense. However, there are times where if you're going to do that consistently over and over and over again, you're going to become a one trick pony at that point. And there's not, again, if it's a formula that really sticks out, I'm not going to fault you for going with that consistent formula. However, over time, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to end up becoming that same band's going to have that same sound over and over and over again. If you're not consistently kind of like, you're going to go from like soft and just to hard consistently, just really quickly. If you create just a little bit of transition there at some point that comes through naturally, what's going to happen is give that song a whole different feel, and it's going to even potentially open up the band to some other ideas as well while keeping that core sound. However, how you get from point A to point B, you might try a couple of different things. I mean, take a look at a band like Falling in Reverse. Whenever they come to transitions, they're trying all this different stuff all across the
Yeah,
board. And I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. I'll say most of the time I think it does work, but you're never going to be 100% perfect.
yeah. I mean, the really abrupt transitions have their place, but it's, for me, I just, give me give me some spectrum here. Give me some more, give me more than two colors. I want to see. To me, that gets really boring really quickly, and I just, you know you've got all these instruments, you've got all this talent stuff. Give me more than two speeds.
And not only that, but also like let your music tell the story that you're trying to tell in this song as well, and don't have it be like, okay, we're gonna go from this part of the book. Like if you're like think of like a book, you don't want to go from the one chapter all of a sudden and skip ahead 3 chapters and go right into that one. No, kind of just have the instrumentals build up to it or transition to it in a little bit. It can be quick, it can be slow, whatever it might be, but use it to enhance the storytelling mode just through the instrumentals, because people will feel that emotion coming through it.
Yeah, dynamics. Take me on a ride. Don't just whip my head around.
Yeah, it's don't just be like on one of those like carnival rides where it just keeps going around in a circle, and all of a sudden you're just kind of like going, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't get, and then all of a sudden you're getting off, and especially if you're over the age of 18 at that point, you're just like feeling your neck like, ah, dear God, that hurt. It's like you don't
Yeah,
want to
man.
always be doing that with your music. Sometimes it does have its place, but you don't want to be consistently doing that. And again, just have have those two gears where it's just like, oh, and then.
Yeah, for sure.
And when listening to your music as well, you definitely have that ability to tell the story, and especially with the flow of the instrumentals that you've gone with, what it really felt like to me was it just had this great storytelling mode where everything had its place. Everything was transitioned from one piece to the next. Nothing really felt out of place in terms of, okay, we're going from verse to pre-chorus to chorus, or verse to chorus, or chorus to bridge, whatever it might have been. All the transition between those parts felt right and felt natural. So when it comes to the songwriting ability, especially on the album that's the debut album that's on Spotify right now, even though it came out in 2018, it still has a lot of that. And I know there's probably something new coming on the horizon as well. However, with what we have to listen to now, what everyone that's listening to this can listen to following this podcast, you're able to listen to this and you're able to tell that there's a lot of intricacies going on within your music in terms of the instrumentals telling the story that you're trying to tell.
Oh, yeah, thanks, man. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a songwriter, and I write mainly on acoustic guitar, which, you wouldn't guess listening to our music, but for me, the hook's got to be there, the melody's got to be there, the flow's got to be there. It's 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 the song first, and the instruments and the flashy stuff definitely second. So I always we always write the music first, and then we say, what is this music, what story is this music telling? And then, whatever the feeling is being created, that's when the lyrics come in, that's when the melody comes in, that's when the hook comes in. And you want to verbally say what the music's already conveying to you, the emotion you're already creating. There's nothing more irritating to me than hearing this song and it makes me feel like, yeah, you know, let's go knock down some walls, and then the lyrics are talking about some cheesy fluffy thing, or vice versa, when the music is all soft and then the lyrics are all, I'm gonna knock your teeth out, and it's like, this is not telling me the right story. You're not creating the feeling that you're, so yeah, basically it's all about the songwriting first and foremost.
And I do have to applaud you for using that songwriting style as well, because how I've always talked about on the podcast as well, and how I've always expressed people, and a lot of people usually either agree with me on this, where when you listen to music and you listen to how the instrumentals form and how they tell that story, they're telling it through the emotion that you feel. And people use music a lot of time to express certain emotions or certain instances where they can't explain that emotion. It's like, well, what did it feel to go through depression? What it feel like to have suicidal tendencies? And if people are trying to explain that, but they struggle to, using music is something that really helps, because you get to understand the feel of it just through the sound. So when you're using your songwriting technique, where you're going to write out what the riffs are going to be, what the song structure is going to be, and you're going to let the instrumentals flow on each other to really figure out what emotion is trying to be told right here, then you're going to write lyrics on top of it so that it becomes even more of a connective experience, not only to yourself, for you who's writing it, but also to the audience that's listening to it. You might be writing about one instance, and someone in the audience might be relating to it with a completely different experience. However, the message and the emotion is the exact same of what you and the person that's listening to it is feeling.
Oh yeah, we definitely, several years back, we had this song that was pretty popular around here. It's called "I Hate This Place," and it was about, for me, writing it musically and lyrically, it was about this really difficult emotional thing I was going through, dealing with a little bit of family history and dealing with a little bit of like mental illness and things that I was struggling with. And it was just this really cathartic, emotional song for me. And we would play it, and it was very popular. And we put out this little EP, and people would come up after the shows, and they'd be like, "Man, how long were you on heroin?" And I would go, "What?" And they would go, "This song, it's all about the struggle I had trying to get off heroin and reconnect with my family and all this emotional turmoil I went through. And I cried for days listening to this song. It touched me so much." And I would be like, that's not the experience I had that I was coming from, but it connected to each of these different people in a different way. It spoke to them on a deep personal level that, and that's, people have all kinds of different motivations for playing music or wanting to become a big rich, famous rock star or whatever, and when I was 18, I thought, oh, I'm gonna be this big famous jerk, and I'm gonna get all the girls and blah blah blah. And then I would say that song and that experience connecting with people and having them come up and say, this thing that you created, it helped me through an emotional difficulty. That became that's the whole reason I write songs, man, is to just touch people. And if I never see a dime from it, just making a difference to the few people I touch, man, that's what it's all. That's why I write songs. That's the songwriting aspect. That's why I say the song's got to come first. The jerk off guitar playing or screaming falsettos and all that stuff is second to the storytelling.
Exactly. I totally have to agree with you on that. And seeing the reaction that people had to that song, where again, like I've been saying, you and what these people went through were completely different in terms of the specifics. However, the emotion of getting through something like that was the exact same, and that's where these people connected with your song. So when they came up and said that to you, they're connecting with you in a way that not many other people are going to, because they didn't go through something like that. And now you have that connection with that person, either just for the night or for life, and they're going to end up listening to your music throughout the rest of their lives due to the fact that you connect with them in a certain way just off of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we all have our songs like that as well, especially like from 2020. I kept looking at everyone's like song of the year list, and I'm like, well, my pick for song of the year isn't anywhere near anybody's list, but I just really didn't care about that because it was a song by the band Polaris called Above My Head, and I don't know exactly what they were writing about or the specifics that they were writing about, but the feeling and the sound of it, not only with the instrumental, with the Napoleonic style guitars, but with the vocals, with how they were, the way they were streaming, with the way that the clean style vocals were done, it perfectly explained, to my opinion, going through depression and feeling like no matter what you did, you just dug yourself in a deeper hole and you couldn't deal with it anymore, and you were just overwhelmed by it to the point where you felt like you just couldn't go on anymore. And I've been at that point before, so it just connected with me in a whole nother way to the point where I didn't even know about Polaris before I even listened to their album in 2020. And I was kind of like, okay, it's a good album, but I'm just not connecting with it anyway fully. I heard that song, and I'm just thinking, I was driving at the time, like, what the hell did I just feel? It's when you get people when you write a song and you have people feel that after one listen or two listens, where they're just like, they could be driving, they could be sitting down at their desk, they could be at work, whatever it might be, and they just kind of have that moment where they stop what they're doing and kind of put their hands on their head and just think, did this just speak to me in a full-on spiritual and religious way? Then that connection is something that is very strong. It's a huge bond, and when you see people at live shows and they connect with you like that, it's the people that are even other people that are at those live shows as well. They're connecting with you in so many different ways that you don't even know, but everyone is connecting with you in a positive way because everyone's relating to the emotion of these songs.
Oh yeah. I mean, you have that significant experience, and you're sitting there and you're bebopping along to the whatever the track is, and then all of a sudden something comes on and it affects you in a deep emotional way. I mean, that's what music is for me. There's so much music that has touched me that way and helped me through things. And, my life was changed by somebody's explaining of what I was going through and couldn't put into words, that, I mean, it saves you sometimes.
It really does. And I see people signs that always say like, your music saved me at live shows. Well, not recently because of freaking COVID shutting down all the live venues, but I'd seen people with those signs and people explain that, and always like post on social media like, oh, these people's music saved me, or this band's music saved me. And at times some people are kind of like, oh, okay, you're kind of just like saying that for a certain way. However, it is honestly true, because I've gone through that as well, where it was a time where I just completely just didn't want it. I was overwhelmed by that depression and trying to get back to myself and trying to overcome it. I was consistently listening to Rise Against because that's my favorite band I had to take that band back because I apparently had a lot of negative emotions toward their music following what I went through. So I'm like, but they're my favorite band. I got to find a way to take them back. And then listening to bands like Skillet and 30 Seconds to Mars, I just connected with them on that level, and it helped bring me back up. Now, do I still listen to 30 Seconds to Mars and Skillet as much as I did back in 2017? Of course not. It's just I don't connect them as much as I did back then. Do I still listen to them? Absolutely, I'm going to listen to them because if I ever have a moment where I just kind of need to just get that like pump up situation I'm ever feeling down, turn on their music and boom, it's just, you get that regeneration feeling going because you connect with it emotionally. You remember what it was like to be at that point and how far you've come over that. And when people listen to your music now and they feel, if they say they're listening to it to get over a certain point and help them through it, and they listen to it like 3-4 years later, and it's just, the emotion is more of a reflective one for them to remember how far they've come and how much your music has helped them get to that point.
Oh yeah, it takes you right back. There's songs that helped me 20 years ago, and I listen to them today. I still love them, but it takes me right back to that place, and all of a sudden it's 20 years ago for me, and I feel that all over again. And it's there's still songs that make me cry, that I listen to them, and it reminds me of this thing that I went through with my brother, and it still makes me tear up. It sends shivers down my spine, and it's like I'm still back in that place. And yeah, it'll always be a mile marker for your journey.
It will be. One thing I always remember hearing people talk about was music is sort of one of the best ways we have to effectively time travel, because you're able to relate back to those emotions, such a strong connective experience, because especially if you listen to them during when you were going through that, because you have that emotional attachment in your mind connected to the sound of that song or sound of that band or sound of that album. And when you listen to it later on in life, you're going to, if you're in a much better place, that's fantastic. And then you're just going to kind of go back to that, and you're going to feel all those feelings over again. However, after you kind of like, take the headphones off your ears, you're still going to be thinking about it, but it's going to be more of a reflective tone to how far you've come from that point to now.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's why we absolutely love music, because it's I don't know. I mean, saying it's a lifesaver is definitely probably the best way to put it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
For me, listening to so many songs that have saved me over the years, but also writing songs, I envy people that can keep a journal. I can't do it. I sit down and I write stuff out, and I feel like a pretentious idiot trying to, I felt this today and da da da, and I just can't. I can't do it. It's never been a discipline I've been able to cultivate. But for me, that's what, I've written hundreds of songs, and certainly not everything I've written is gold. I've written terrible songs, I'm sure, but regardless of the quality, I've written songs that have perfectly and succinctly helped me through the emotion that I couldn't get this out of me, and I couldn't get past it, and writing it down and putting a melody to it and being able to hum it along, and especially having it touch somebody else. That's like, okay, I've worked through that, and I've given it to somebody else. I've given somebody else the words that they didn't have, and somebody else did that for me. One of my favorite artists is a folk singer named Ana DeFranco, and she's one of the greatest lyricists I've ever heard. I mean, I'd put her up there with Bob Dylan and guys like that. I mean, she's amazing. She's just a deft assassin with words. She's just so good, and she's one of those people that has been able to say everything that was locked up inside of me, and and I've cried and I've cried and I've cried listening to her music, and just emotional release. And it definitely has saved me. Definitely listening to so many people, but she's definitely one of them, that her music saved me and my ability. And she taught me how to write songs. She taught me how to turn a phrase, and so being able to do that for somebody else, and even taking them out of just the ability to put pen to paper and strum a chord on the acoustic guitar or something. I mean, it's been a lifesaver to me.
And by saying the fact that you were influenced in your writing style by how she wrote her music and how she would progress in her styles and all of a sudden just write lyrics in a certain way to touch you, that's absolutely an amazing thing as well, because you would, in the grand scheme of things, you never expect someone that's writing hard rock music to take a lot of inspiration from someone who writes folk music. However, that ends up giving your music a certain twist to it as well, because there's a different writing style primarily between folk and hard rock. And when people think hard rock, like what your influence would be in terms of writing style, again, people are going to take a look at what your music sounds like to them and what they relate it to in terms of other bands. So they're gonna be like, oh, he must kind of write it in the similar style of this band, this band, this band. I would have never guessed folk music in any sense of the word, but it gives you, in my opinion, a great advantage because you understand a different way to write music than most people in rock or metal, for that instance, would. And it just gives your music, again, just a little bit of this edge where you're going to be talking in a certain way. You're going to end up forming your music in a certain way just so that, again, that emotion hits in the perfect style that you're trying to portray to your audience. And then you're going to, again, get those moments where when you're at a live show, people are going to come up to you and basically tell you their whole story because they connected with your song in that way.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
That's something that is, I mean, irreplaceable in the overall scheme of things. And I think that's another big reason why people have been absolutely missing live shows, because we miss that connectivity.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
And it's something that we need back super duper quickly because it has been way too long.
Yeah. We do the Dead Rebel Saints thing, and, we put out the record and we played a bunch and we sold a bunch of t-shirts, and, it was great. And I also sing for this tribute band, the Soundgarden tribute band, because I got the range and stuff. And, just all week long and every weekend, and playing shows and rehearsals and shows and rehearsals and shows and rehearsals. And I was getting burned out, and, 2020 hit, and I was like, this is, on one hand, it's terrible, but on the other hand, I'm gonna appreciate a few weeks off, a few weeks, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
And then it drug on and it drug on and it drug on. And I was like, man, I take it back. I don't need a break. I need shows. And, the only, and for a lot of people, I guess, what are you going to do with all that time on your hands? I mean, you got to do something productive with it. And so for me, it was to write a new record. And, and that's what we've done. We've just started tracking this new record. And I don't know if you noticed on the Throwing Stones record, there's 15 tracks. That's more for your money than most bands give you. You get 10 tracks, you get 11 tracks, you get 8 tracks sometimes. And my philosophy has always been, you've got, what is it, 74 minutes of usable space on a CD. You better fill 73 and a half of them at least. And nothing worse than you go and you buy a record. Well, I don't know who buys CDs anymore, but I do. You go and buy a CD and you flip it over and you see that little burned ring, and there's a half an inch of burned ring, and there's 3/4 of an inch of empty space on that disc. And it's like, man, you guys ripped me off. I paid you full price for this tiny little 34 minutes of music. And, so my philosophy has always been, you're gonna make a record, you make the whole record, you don't make half a record. And so that's what we've done again with this new record. It's 15 songs. I don't even know if they'll all fit I haven't timed it yet. I don't even know if they'll all fit on the record or not, but we're in the age of digital release. You can put out 24 songs if you feel like it. So
Yeah.
That's exciting. That's exciting for us. We've got a very diverse record on the way, and we're pretty proud of it.
What do you mean by very diverse? There's my mess up for the day. Woohoo! Tongue tied. What do you mean by diverse record in terms of sound? Are we just going to get that same hard rock sound that you have created, especially on Throwing Stones? Or are we going to get something that's a little bit more evolved in terms of just different influences coming in, different styles coming in at the same time? What can we really expect overall in that more diverse style album?
Yeah, it's gonna swing a little farther to the left and a little farther to the right than the Throwing Stones record. There's gonna be definitely some throwbacks to like early Soundgarden records, that very kind of like abstract and punk kind of feel that they had to some of their stuff. There's gonna be, some stuff that's very reminiscent of like early Black Sabbath. There's some stuff that feels like maybe Alice in Chains Dirt record. There's definitely some stuff that feels like maybe some Appetite for Destruction. I know I've mentioned a lot of these influences, but I think we've leaned even harder into these influences and more dynamics. I mean, it gets softer, it gets harder, it covers the gamut in between. There's definitely some blues rock, um, um, some stuff that I was having a hard time identifying. I don't know if you've heard. There's a newer band. They toured with Guns N' Roses a couple of years ago called Dirty Honey, and they've definitely got that kind of sleazy 70s rock feel. And there's some stuff that kind of covers their territory. It's kind of Aerosmith, Black Crowsy, but with a harder edge to it. So it swings the gamut. And whereas I feel like with the Throwing Stones record, I think that's a great record. And it definitely does hard rock to tiptoeing into metal and stuff. But I think the new stuff that we're working on, which I don't know why I'm promoting, we don't have it out, but the new stuff that we're working on, I think it just it's a little more sophisticated.
Yeah, hold up one sec, Kevin, because all of a sudden, like the audio on your whatever you're recording on just kind of dipped down a little bit just for that little part out of nowhere.
Oh, I'll say the whole thing again. So where'd you lose me?
Oh, yeah, it's doing it again, I think.
We might have to cut this short. I don't know what's going on.
It's I don't know, but I'm kind of picking up a little bit more. But I mean, we're at about 35 minutes. I know you have a call with whatever producers you're working with to produce this new album and really work on some of those new songs. So I don't want to keep you too much from that, but
yeah, absolutely.
So when it comes to we'll close it like this. So when it comes to Dead Rebel Saints, when it comes to the new album, do we know any release date of this at this given point, or any tentative date so people can expect, start following Dead Rebel Saints now so that when it comes out, or if it doesn't, they can follow it you guys now so that when you guys do have that announcement, hey, you will know. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the middle of tracking it, and we don't want to rush it. We want to take all the time in the world and get all the tones perfect and really do the songs justice. So I'm hoping to have it out by May or June. Give us several months to track everything, get it mixed and mastered, and up to its level. There's no rush. I mean, we're going to put this record out, and we're not going to be able to tour on it. So, we've got all the time in the world. Let's just make it great. And we've got an album and a half of Throwing Stones. I mean, you got 15 songs there to sink your teeth into. So we're not hurting for music out there.
No, you're definitely not hurting for music out there at all. And when people get a chance to listen to it, I mean, you're going to basically get your money's worth, because when we talk about on the podcast here, you heard Keven talk about his writing style. You heard him talk about the intricacies that go into it to make sure that these songs are going to hit in that emotional sense, and whatever story that's trying to be told, it's going to make sense. It's going to hit you in that way. It's going to be perfectly articulated. So you can expect high quality stuff, and you're going to be expecting a lot of high quality stuff as well, because, hey, 15 songs. I mean, you're giving the people what they came for. You're giving the people a lot to work with, instead of just, we're going to have a full album and it's 31 minutes long. No, if you're going to give it like 73, 74 minutes, you can give people a lot to basically sink their teeth into, a lot to really listen to, and a lot to really take in and understand where you're coming from, whatever story you're trying to tell at that point. Again, each song is going to have a different story to tell. I'm not sure what they're all going to be, but having all those different influences there with that bass and rock music and hard rock music, you're definitely going to have something, especially coming after Throwing Stones, where there's going to be a lot of intricacies there. And it seems like, in my opinion, the way they're going to be weaving in these influences into the music is going to make a lot of sense, to the point where it's going to sound crisp. It's going to sound like they belong, and it's going to sound like this is a full dynamic record.
Absolutely.
So before we send you on your merry way to keep working on this brand new record, where can we find you in terms of social media, where people can stream your music, and where people can basically get into Dead Rebel Saints now, so that when that new record comes out, they're ready?
Yeah, we've got at the moment, the Throwing Stones record is up on all the streaming platforms, Spotify and the Apple Music and all that fun stuff. We're behind the times in that, the only place you can follow us at the moment is is Facebook. We're getting our Instagram together and getting all that. We're working with MBK. Those guys are putting our social media together. We've been a word of mouth band this whole time, and just playing shows and turning people on. So we don't got the social media game together yet.
But whatever, I'll say this, whatever I can find on you guys in terms of where they can follow you, in terms of where they can stream their music, in terms of where they can listen, even if it's on YouTube as well, when everybody's looking for it, we'll put it this way for everybody. This is something that's very standard for the Chord Progression podcast. Whether you're watching the episode on YouTube or you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or iHeart Radio, just look at the description of the podcast and you're going to see this thing that says Find Dead Rebel Saints online, and you're just going to see different labels and different links. I'm making it as easy as possible for you guys so you can follow their stuff, like their stuff, share their stuff, whatever might be, listen to their stuff, stream it. I'm going to give you guys a one-stop shop to all of a sudden click, 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 bing, bang, boom, and you're going to be right there. I'm going to do all the heavy lifting for you. All you have to do is click a link. That's it. I'm making it easy. Come on, guys. So Keven, on that note, I do not like to end these podcasts by saying goodbye because I've enjoyed this conversation with you. I'd love to have you on again when that record does come out so we can talk all about it, have some fun with it. And yeah, so that's why I can't say goodbye at that point. And when live shows return and I get a chance to see you guys play, yeah, I'm going to be there. And you know what? We're going to add you to this club. It's one of my favorite clubs to add people to. That's my own little thing. I call it the First Rounds on Me Club. So when I come and see you live, that's basically what it is. First Rounds on Me. So make sure you're ready for that.
All right. Well, then it's not goodbye. It's see you again soon.
Yep. It's always see you later.
All right, man.
Whoa, folks, that was my interview with Keven from the band Dead Rebel Saints. Yes, that was a little bit of a shorter one, but that's because when it comes down to making that new album that they were talking about, he had a call with the producers of that new album to make sure that everything was set and ready to go so that they could start tracking all this stuff and really make go and give you guys the best possible album possible. And I'm glad I got the time with him today, but I didn't want to hold him up too much from that. So I'm glad I got him for the time being. He's now a member of the First Rounds on Me Club, and I'm glad to have him on that club because this was a fun conversation. I'd love to have Keven back again when the new Dead Rebel Saints album comes out, so I'm looking forward to that. I hope you're looking forward to that. Again, when it comes to finding them online, all the links you can figure out to find on them when it comes to social media, YouTube, where to stream their album that's out right now, or prepare to stream their album when it comes out, their new one, in like May or June. Yeah, I've got the links there for you too. And on that note, that's going to be for me today, guys. Thank you for watching and listening to the Chord Progression Podcast with MSOD Rocks, where rock and metal thrive. My name is Keven, and you guys know how I end every single one. Up to the big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah!